Folks, this is going to be the last one of these. It's hard to believe the weekend has really come to an end. It's been an amazing weekend. Thank you all for being here and being a part of life. It's one of the most amazing things I've seen in my life. Each of us has something that we owe, I guess, to Tom Sherman. That's what all these people here are going to be talking about for the next hour and a half, 2 hours. I don't want to waste any of that valuable time, so we'd like to start and introduce first Roland Sherman, and then we're going to introduce Tony Baxter. Roland is Tom's brother, then take it away, Roland.
Yeah, that's right. I'm Tom's brother. Paraphrase a terrific movie. How did this all start? Well, the dinosaurs grew up and then they died and became one. No, not that far back. Not that far back. But pretty far back. I'm maybe 7. Tom's maybe 4, 5, or I'm 8 and he's 5. We knew about Harper Goff because my dad is a jazz fan and Harper Goff was playing this banjo on our record player all the time. We loved Dixieland, and there was Harper Goff, this funny looking guy strumming away on the banjo. It's astonishing how all these years later, and we're talking more than half a century later, that my brother, who, like you all, fell in love with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, more than smitten by it. It became a life's work. He comes out here, becomes a model maker for Coast and Cascade. I guess one of his main things was to meet Harper Goff. Not only does he meet him, but they become lifelong friends. Harper, toward the end, is saying, "Tom, you're the son they never had." I mean, this is as great as Tom was. We all owe Harper Goff, and I think he gets the big round of applause. His genius that inspired my kid brother, who apparently himself was a genius. And Harper taught Tom very well. And Tom taught you all very well. I've learned a lot this weekend. I met a lot of neat people. I think this is such a wonderful idea. I had no idea that it was expanding. 50 years after the movie comes out, it's like more fans now than, when Kirk Douglas was a kid. But thank you for everything, and thank you for keeping this all alive. It's been a terrific weekend. I'm going to turn this over to Tony, who knows the details.
Well, let's see, we've got an hour and a half here. So I'm always good at talking, but maybe I'll ramble a little bit here. Yesterday I mentioned my first day at Imagineering, when they were taking me around and showing me where the sculpture shop was and all of that, was, I think, about the last day, or at least when Tom had announced that he'd had it and he was going to leave Imagineering. And he was working out in the back, I think, on Mineral King, or one of those projects that we were doing up in the mountains. And it was going badly. And Tom had this incredible, absolute drive to do things perfectly. Everything had to be the right way. And when things began to compromise or go kind of fussy, that's where Tom got going, And so I learned something on that day, and it can kind of be thought, the movie and the play Sunset Boulevard had a lot about the whole Hollywood thing that resonated with me. In it, there's a young girl who's writing her first script, and she's so excited. This is my first script that I've ever done, and I'm 22 years old, and I see these people coming in every day, and I was that young person. Tom was wrestling like the second character in that play, who was realizing, and the film did it beautifully, they made him literally a prostitute in order to survive in that world. Tom was not a prostitute. He had to do things right. And in the story, Joe Gillis kind of gives up his principles. And when he's questioned about what is it, was wrong with this story that he'd written. He said, well, last year I had integrity. This year I want to eat. Tom was always willing not to eat. If you knew Tom, he was an incredible guy that, while all his friends would take whatever the next production was and lap it up like a dog, Tom would hold out. Tom would wait until there was something really wonderful happening. So my first day when I was writing my first script was Tom's day at which, do I prostitute myself here or do I go on out and do something wonderful again? And so he left at that time. He was to come back many, many times during my years there, and we kept touch when he wasn't there. And he would be working more for Disney when he wasn't working for Disney often than he was when he was working for Disney. As you all know, the Discovery Day Chronicles being one of those passion things that he really did on his own, with his own money and his own time, and just a little bit of help from the rest of us who were so enamored with someone who has passion, like Tom, that you do it for him just because you'd rather work for someone who wants what you have than someone who's paying you for what you have. And I think that was kind of a neat thing about Tom. I lost the train of thought. I'll have to try and pull that one back later. So I think for me, the next thing that Tom and I kind of really connected on was Discovery Bay. And I think it was at a time that he was not working there and he heard about it. So of course he became working there again, because he was more into like, well, now that's a very cool thing that I'd love to work on. And the company was always pretty good about indulging him coming back and forth because he was so incredibly talented that, instead of saying you must work 5 days a week from 8 in the morning till 5 o'clock and all of that, with Tom it's more about what do you have that's worth me working on, and then I'll do it and I'll work not from 8 to 5 but from 8 to 8 to 8 to 8 to 8, what do they call it now, 24/7s, So that was the way he was. One night when we were starting on this Discovery Bay thing for like the second time in the late, I think it was 70-something, 76, Tom says, I've got a couple of friends. And Tom grew up in Hollywood with Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett. And these guys were kind of all sharing a little apartment down in Silver Lake, eating beans and all that. And Tom said, we're going over there. They have all these rubber heads and stuff from some stupid science fiction movie. And, would you like to see that? So we go down to Silver Lake. And there's Phil Tippett with his weird circular chess set, And he's gluing all these little monster figures on. He said, well, we did this as an effect in this movie I'm working on, and it was never really together. We did some animation, and then that was matted into the checkerboard, circular thing. So I'm gluing it all together for the director of this film as a surprise kind of gift. And that turned out, of course, to be George Lucas in that little stupid science fiction film, And then they pulled out a big cardboard box filled with every Cantina monster that you can imagine, and we were all putting these heads on it. And every one of us at that thing was saying, this is the dumbest, stupid movie. There's no way this is going to be any good. And I could see where Tom, after we left there, goes, well, those guys have really sold out, And that's the way he was. And so he always had these high ideals that he was waiting for something that was absolutely perfect for him. So we did go as far as you've seen over the weekend on Discovery Bay, and it unfortunately never really reached that point. And it's these collisions of, marketable versus not marketable, and how much money did this movie make, and all these decisions that have nothing to do with the purity of an idea. And that, I think, always frustrated Tom because he could see the end product that he wanted, and he knew it was going to be wonderful. And I think today, what you saw just in the presentation before of Mysterious Island, I just can't imagine what Tom would have done to have seen that. It is an awesome thing. I think it would have been as good as it is, and I would say Tim was wrong. Everything they built is 100%. They just didn't build 100% of all that they were going to build. But what they did build was not 85%, it's 100%. But having said that, if Tom was involved, the storylines and the finessing and everything would have been, over the top. I know that would have happened. I've got a few pictures here that we shot when Tom finished what was probably the best gift we could give to him. we were, faced with a nice, interesting position that Euro Disneyland needed 1,300 hourly capacity added to the park at a cost of $113 million. Now the business guys come out and say that means you have $13 million to spend on each 1,000 of the capacity, and Tom is sitting there going, no, we need to do the right things. And I said, what I will do is spread that around. If we spend a lot on the Nautilus and a lot on the Indiana Jones ride, and nothing on the Castle walkthrough, and nothing on the Aladdin walkthrough, and nothing on the Fort walkthrough, we'll still have 5,000 in the combination of those things, but we'll have 2 that are highly marketable, and 3 that give us added capacity, but don't really drive any kind of interest. So we were fortunate that they let us move that money around, and they kept their arithmetic, in the studio, and said, as long as you don't go over budget on the whole thing. So we really were able to spend what we needed to do to do the Nautilus right over there. If we had divided it and spent our $13 million to build that sub, it would have never come out as good as it did. So we called Tom up, and I think this was just about the time that he was starting to deal with his illness. And I think it was what sustained him. I can't imagine all the horrible things that he was going through. He would hint at it sometimes, and I almost didn't want to know about that stuff. I'm kind of live in a Disney world, and those things don't happen to people, or shouldn't. But what was great about this project is it was probably the thing he wanted to do more than anything in the world, which is to build the Nautilus. So we put him in charge of it. We built the Nautilus over at Tahunga at our production facility, and Tom literally lived there during that entire project. And I remember on the day that Michael Eisner was coming in to buy it off, we kind of arranged a special thing, and I don't know where this plaque and everything ended up, but do you? Oh, you've got it. Okay, well, yeah, okay. Well then, at the next year's thing, we'll have the plaque here. So what we did is we cornered Michael before he went into the building, gave him a small lecture, just like we're going to get today with all of us, about how important Tom was to the company, and a little bit about what challenges he was facing in his life. And Michael Eisner came in there and presented this plaque to Tom Sherman. And it was an amazing thing, because Tom, like I said, takes everything that he does very seriously. And we had Michael pose as sort of the admiral, giving it to Captain Tom of the Nautilus, who had completed building this task. And you could literally see Tom going, yes sir, yes sir. And he underplayed it, and we were able to give him I think we gave him $10,000 as a trick. We knew he needed money for this, what he was facing, and so I thought the company really was pretty generous on that. And then we invited him to spend the night with his friends in the boat, but I don't think he would. He was kind of in awe of his own creation. So here are a couple shots. This is in a spectacular restaurant called Waltz that we have in Disneyland Paris, and one whole room is devoted to Jules Verne and Discoveryland. And of course, Tom built that small Nautilus, which is all brass plated and on display above that Art Nouveau fireplace. And it's truly a spectacular room. I'm sorry you can't see the ceiling in this shot, but it's all an unbelievable heaven.
You want to bring lights down?
Yeah, let's take the lights down.
Yeah, bring the lights down,
Knows
please.
how to, it'll give us. There's only 6 pictures here, but they'll have a little bit more punch to them. If this chandelier can go back there, okay, that's good. Yeah, there we can see a little bit more. But there's a whole lot of Jules Verne artifacts and artworks in this room from the park, and each room in the Waltz restaurant is dedicated to a different land in the park. So in this room, Tom sat in there. They still allow smoking over in Paris. So Tom had his pipe, and he sat in there and he gave out interview after interview, and I believe a lot of those are still around, at least the Disney ones. And I think he was probably, even though he was really at this point seriously ill, I think he was absolutely in his element. He couldn't have made the guy any happier. So let's go on to the next one. Now, I don't know, does anyone here know Bruce Gordon? Bruce Gordon has an incredible fear of heights. Tom, however, does not. We are standing on the top of Space Mountain here, about to take the picture that I showed you yesterday looking down. And, you know, Tom was, again, not well at this time, and there was no elevator that got us up there. But it was worth it to him to see what that Nautilus looked like down in the harbor from way up on top of that mountain. So he hiked it up and, you know, never complained. There was never any qualms about it. Okay, we'll go on. Now, again, I had these shots yesterday. We literally came down from the mountain when it was sunny, like you saw in the last one. But Tom was going to hang out there on this boat until the very last minute that night. So he was like all over the thing and down in the salon, and, you know, making sure every single thing was perfect before we opened it. I think it was, he was there through the last couple days of construction, and then on into doing interviews for the opening. And there he is getting ready to climb down inside the wheelhouse.
How do you get into it?
There's the hatch is practical where the window was on the back, so that it looks like the window in the movie, but it actually opens, and we have all the equipment in the back of the wheelhouse for creating all the water effects that, you know, kind of spray along the edge of it. Yeah. And I think I had one of those in there yesterday. We're looking. This is the controls for the effects, but the other part that the guests see from the outside has the wheel and looks pretty cool, especially at night when it's lit up inside. And it faces directly out at the Hyperion. So you can imagine after Tom kicks Tim and I out, and he turned around and faced the other way, I just know what was going through his mind. He was there. He was having that dream fulfilled.
Nemo moment.
Yes, the quintessential Nemo moment, yes. Now this was inside the Grand Salon. And the park over there, here's one for you if you really want to get a high-end convention next year or the year after. They will serve a banquet on board the Nautilus in the Grand Salon with everybody in costume. So it's been done 2 or 3 times, and I don't know what it costs, but that would be wild. And unfortunately, Tom never got to do that, but at least people over there are thinking, you know. I know the Coca-Cola company had their executive board meeting and banquet on board the Nautilus, so it can be done. And I think we come back now to, is that the last one? I can't remember. Or is there one more? Okay, yeah, so there he is. And he was always understanding, you know, if you ask Tom, he goes, well, I think the fin should be a little bit longer on this side, and the curve on this wasn't quite right. But, you know, again, for all of us, it was 100%. For Tom, it was probably 99%. And of course, he was looking only at that 1% that we didn't get. But we were very, very proud of it. And it was certainly, it'll stay there for all time. And it is testimonial to not Disney and not Harper Goff, but the stamina of Tom with all the challenges he had to make a dream that could have easily been another carnival ride for 1,000 capacity and $13 million and so forth. But no, he turned it into truly one of the, you know, sterling kind of landmark attractions for Discoveryland. So I think that brings us back. We'll just leave that one up, but you can bring the lights up. And I do have, when we're through with everyone else giving their comments here, we're going to run a DVD that was made from Tom's memorial service that's sort of a tribute to him. It was done by Bruce Gordon. I think that'll be the wrap-up thing that we'll run at the end today. So I'm going to hand it over to Pete, I guess. Would you be the next?
Yeah, I guess, do you want to show the tape for us?
Okay.
We could probably bring the lights down again for this.
Our ship sails with the tide, so I'll be brief. My name is Jason Chandler. You may not recall, so let me refresh your memory. In the 1870s, with the aid of a locomotive drilling engine far ahead of its time, I discovered an immense vein of gold deep in the Thunder Mountains. Its volume beyond measure, so vast as to render the entire gold standard as worthless as tin. So I brought back less than a fraction of that amount. 1,000 times more than enough to finance the construction of a marvelous refuge of scientific discovery and imagination. Located in a remote cove on the California coast, I called it appropriately Discovery Bay. Here I assembled the world's greatest minds to bring forth unrestrained some remarkable achievements in science and invention. Several of our future plans include underwater living quarters and ships which will cruise beneath the ocean's surface. We will eventually embark to conquer the skies with flying craft. And Captain Briand is on his way here this very moment to donate his services in his airship, Hyperion. My scientific colony remains in seclusion until our experiments prove successful. We have visionaries young and old working here, with ideas far outreaching the wildest fantasies ever dreamed of, even by that French novelist, what's his name? Jules Verne. And yet, fiction often has a way of becoming fact. For while we're on the subject of Verne, allow me to show you something. In 20,000 leagues under the seas, a giant monster was reportedly sinking ships at random in the great northern and southern Pacific Oceans. Appearing only at night, with its great glowing eyes just at the water's surface, it would travel at incredible speeds, strike and destroy these ships without warning. But in actuality, this so-called monster was a submarine boat, christened the Nautilus and commanded by a misanthropic genius. Without a country or a name, he called himself simply Captain Nemo. And if you recall your school day Latin, the word Nemo is translated as meaning no one, no man. Following an explosion, the power of which has never been equaled by man, the Nautilus, Captain Nemo, and his renegade crew disappeared beneath the waves. The very forces Nemo used to power his ship, he in turn utilized to destroy his hidden laboratory base on an uncharted island in the Pacific. And for nearly 30 years, the Nautilus has been resting on the ocean floor. However, 3 men who had taken a voyage 20,000 leagues around the world in the submarine managed to escape. They were Nemo's prisoners at the time. A French scientist, his assistant, and a harpooner from San Francisco. It was in this iron boat, once belonging to the Nautilus, that they sought their freedom. While in San Francisco several years ago, I purchased it from the harpooner after hearing his story. He was only too happy to be rid of it. It's only one piece in an immense puzzle to go by, but along with some other clues, I'm now on my way to find this fantastic submarine. The challenge of locating this craft, whether it's salvageable or not, and the secrets locked within its watery grave, could indeed provide the focal point of my scientific company itself. Another chapter in the famous Discovery Bay Chronicles. Well, time and tide, as they say. so I'm off. We've got an extra berth or two. Why don't you come along? Oh, don't forget to turn down the lamp and close the door. We may be gone for quite a spell.
I guess we can turn the lights up, but that, as most of you know, I suppose, was the sort of a pilot thing done by Tom, written and produced by Tom, directed by Glenn Johnson, for a miniseries proposed to tie in with the Discovery Bay area. Unfortunately, it never was produced. Tony mentioned yesterday, I really didn't know that it had been presented, I guess, to Ron Miller, who was in charge at the time. And everybody seemed to be in a, well, let's cut the costs routine. And this looked expensive, which it would have been, but it would have been quality too, as opposed to some of the little miniseries that cranked out around that same time. But it was shot at Coast Special Effects. We did it in 2 days, 20 years ago. 20 years ago in November. And I know it was 20 years ago because, as I mentioned yesterday, when I looked in the mirror, there was a lot more salt and pepper in that beard. But we shot it on a Saturday and Sunday. The first part was in the upper room, and then the second part down below. Of course, the matte shot was done on the second day. And to get down below, I had to do the old fake stage thing about, you know, because there was no stairway. But it was just a pleasure, and we all did it for Tom. I mean, he had such enthusiasm, such excitement, and such dedication. It inspired all of us, and I think it turned out extremely well, considering that there was practically no money put into it. I mean, Tom built that set, I think, 90% of it by himself. And of course the matte shots were part of it, but it's just amazing. You will see that Nautilus surfacing, and when I think that was on Lancashire Boulevard with a bunch of the guys from Coast Special Effects running around the roof, and then the whole thing put in with a matte shot, it's just amazes me every time I see it. Tony reminded me of a funny thing that happened. How did you break that Nautilus at your house?
Oh,
He had one of
the
those.
earthquake, yeah.
Oh, it was the earthquake. The earthquake tumbled his model that Tom had given him. And I guess it was pretty badly damaged. When Tom heard about it, he got me to do my Captain Nemo, the narration that I'd done for the Nautilus ride at Walt Disney World. And I called Tony and said, "My God, its shell has been crushed like an eggshell." But we just had...
It wasn't funny at the time.
It was... we had such a good time with this project. I just wish that Tom could be here with us today to see how people really do appreciate all of his wonderful talents. And as you go out, take a look out there. I brought in today a bunch of the Xeroxes of his napkin art that were done just as inside gags, birthday little greetings and inside jokes that he had done for me, and there are a lot more, but space wouldn't permit me to lug them all in. But I think you'll see what a great sense of humor he had. Are there any questions about this film? Yes?
Well, in today's market, you know, with all the interest in fantasy and science fiction, can't that be repitched and with the technology that they've got today?
I would think so. I would hope so, and I would think with some of the people that are now there, they're not afraid to spend the money that, you know, we would have been really worried about back then.
Well, now this would have to be done through Disney because of the intellectual property.
To tie in with Discovery Bay, I would think it would have to be. I don't know, Tony could probably answer that.
What you need is a Jerry Bruckheimer as the guts.
That's right.
Go in there and punch and scream and yell and say, I want it my way, you know?
Exactly.
Well, Pirates is doing well,
Yes,
so
it is.
he
Number one
certainly
movie.
has the clout now.
That's true. That's true. All right, let's get it, Jerry. We're still looking for the original 35 millimeter negative on this thing. And we don't really know what happened to it. We would like to find it so we can run off some DVDs, get a really good quality, because our little VHS copies here that are left, you know, are already starting to disintegrate. So
Yeah, it'd be great if someone found it, we could then notify everyone and find out what the cost to print, like, 100 DVDs or something. That would be really cool. I would want one.
I want to run one off of this, but still, to get the original would be great.
Yeah.
The quality would be so much better. Well, thank you very much, and thank you all for your interest in good old Tom.
Thanks. I didn't have a whole lot to do with Discovery Bay, except Tom and I made that 11-foot Nautilus, which now is in one man's dream. Say again?
It's in front of my, no, not that one.
The 11-foot one is in one man's dream at the Walt Disney Studios in Florida. And they sent it out for rehab, and I used to go there and say, I'll rehab it, I helped make it. And, who are you? So they sent it out to some outside house that had no idea what it was or what it was supposed to look like. And it came back with a real nice shiny brown paint job on it, and there was rivets on the ram and some kind of frilly fleur-de-lis anchor on it. But at least it still exists. And Tom and I had a lot of fun with that. If you look at my scrapbook in the back, after we shot 6 times at 120 frames a second, the Nautilus just surfacing, kids will be kids. And we started pulling it around the tank to watch the bow wave that it generated. It was really neat, and we got some great pictures of it, which are in the book, but I've since gotten Photoshop, so I can make greater pictures now. Just haven't gotten to it. But it was a lot of fun. But Tom was fun to work with, and I really miss that. And I went through a little bit of a depression over Tom's passing, where Nautilus stuff just wasn't fun without Tom. And I tried to get over that, as I mentioned in my earlier presentation this week, or this day, that 3 years ago, I revived what Tom and I used to do, and that was Nautilus conventions. And people were always very interested in bring stuff out, and we'd have models and stories and gab fests and drink lots of cheap red wine, and the poet would always fix this big pot of spaghetti, which was the traditional meal for the get-togethers. And Tom would have been very glad, and also very, I don't know, he didn't like a lot of fuss. I gave Kim a copy of a DVD or a CD that I made from 1994. Tom and I went with some other people to the Bing Theater on December 23rd, 1994, 2 months before Tom passed. And this lady that was the moderator, whose name doesn't come back to me quick enough, says there's a beautiful display out in front put together by Tom Sherman. Is Tom here? And Tom stood up, and Richard Fleischer starts to talk enthusiastically about Tom, and Tom, in characteristic Tom fashion, goes, "It's your night, Richard, it's your night." Get me there. But it's on there, and it's, I think, the last video that I have of Tom, or pictures I have, and he died February 26th of 95, and this was December 23rd of 94. So it was right there at the end, but he was getting recognition for it, which was really nice. And he was an incredible friend to work with. And I mentioned this energy field that he had. It was a great thing. So we miss you, Tom. Harry'd probably like to say something. He was there that day when we were shooting or playing with the Nautilus. Sure. Harry Hamilton.
Rich and the others, I got caught up in Tom's energy field and taken along on a couple of projects, and he was very inspirational to me in writing my Cine Fantastique article, and it was due to him that I did it in the first place. I guess my favorite story of Tom is when he took me over to WED and we opened up the Nautilus model, and he showed me every bit of it, and it was a thrilling day. And helping on the Discovery Day Chronicles special effects shoot, I wasn't there for the live action, but it was a big bathtub and a big toy, and a lot of fun, and a dream come true for me, thanks to Tom Sherman.
We're going to take a small break right now for about 5 to 6 minutes. So people who need to get some water or use the restroom can go ahead and run down. So we'll be starting back up in just about 5 to 6 minutes. So feel free to take a small break, get some water. So then we're going to continue this presentation after that with the rest of our speakers. You still can purchase several of the lottery tickets if you'd like to. We still have those left up here in the front. And we will see you in just about 5 minutes. Thank you. People here? There we go. Introduce yourself.
Actually, was there were
My name's Dennis Bucko, and I've not met probably any one of you. You don't know who I am. But I actually met Tom through this woman right over here. Sally, would you stand? This is Sally Clerkin Bucko, Tom's former wife.
Tom's former wife.
Not many of you probably didn't realize that Tom was previously married. Not even a chuckle? No, Sally is my wife, and Sally still is, I guess, Tom's cousin. And I first met Tom through Sally, as I said. Sally's told me some stories about Tom that she's a little reluctant to share with you, but he apparently was a special effects guy from the time he was very little. Maybe you already told a story about the dinosaur movies and making models at a very young age. But we moved to California in 1981, and Tom had already moved out here from Pelham, where Sally would visit him. Sally was the country cousin, and Tom was the city cousin. Sally would come down from Vermont and visit when she was how old? 8, 9, 10. This is going nowhere. But when we moved to California, San Diego, Tom came down to visit us, and he brought this fantastic costume down that he had made for something or other. I'm not sure what, maybe some of you know, but it was a dinosaur costume that was a full-size foam rubber costume, and he gave it to our kids. And of course they wore it for Halloween. I think I actually put it on once too, and we had it in our storage unit for a few years. Then it started to deteriorate and crumble, and we asked Tom what should we do. He said, "Oh, you better get rid of that because it's got toxic fumes, and just don't keep that as best." But as you know, Tom was really serious, and he seemed to scowl a lot at that. But then when Tom got sick, we came up to visit him, being fairly close. I'm a physician. I think maybe Tom felt a little relationship with me because he was going through some bad times. As you know, he did do the chemotherapy and bone marrow transplant. And it's kind of ironic because shortly after he died, a drug was discovered that was specifically designed to treat non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in San Diego. And unfortunately, he didn't have the opportunity to use that drug, and it made a difference. But the developer of that drug happens to be a friend of mine who's a physician. And the company's, that's their drug. It's a fabulous drug. A little too late for time, obviously. That's all I have to say. I was asked to see if anyone else in the audience might have a word or two to say about Tom.
I didn't know Tom, but now I realize that actually I did to some degree, have association because I live in Northern California, and so I try to keep my hand in the show business. A friend of mine is a model maker and an animator. He worked on the last series of Gumbies that ABC ordered back in '86, and I also worked on that, doing setups and lighting and stuff like that. And a couple of guys, friends of this Steven, a friend of mine, came over and he introduced me to Dennis Muir and then Phil Tippett, and they kept saying, God, Tom Sherman should be here. This is Tom's thing, you know, because this thing needs more nernies on it. And so I learned the nernies thing. And touring ILM one time, guys were saying, you got to Sherman this. You got to do some more Tom on this here because it's like got no texture to it. You got to, you know, as Emerald would say, kick it up a notch. And then another time, I'm with Steven. I'm in LA. He says we're going to go to Bob Burns' place and, you know, visit his stuff because I'd never seen it. And so we went over there, and we were starting to go through, and Bob says, "Oh, you should have been here a few minutes ago because you know, Tom Sherman was here." Until this weekend, I mean, I've been hearing this guy's name. I didn't know the connection. I mean, I've been, since I first went to the theater and saw 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I've been like, you know, about the Nautilus and the whole movie and everything. I didn't realize until this weekend that this connection of this guy's name that I've been hearing everywhere, that everybody's in awe of, who I am in awe of. I mean, this is a guy that everybody that I respect in special effects. I mean, guys that worked on Flesh Gordon, you know, they mentioned. You know, I mean, you know, you name it. We built a spaceship for a thing called Planet of Dinosaurs. Well, Planet of Dinosaurs, the guys were working on that. Steve Churkus, I don't know whether you know who Steve is, a sculptor, dinosaur sculptor, and all those guys. Tom Sherman. I mean, the name keeps coming up, and like I say, until this weekend, I didn't put it together. So I just want to tell you that I've been, you know, a Tom Sherman fan without even knowing I was a Tom Sherman fan all this time. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
I wanted to add one thing about an example of Tom's sense of humor. He was talking about the dinosaur costume. Somebody threw a Gone with the Wind party one time.
Oh, great story.
And of course, there were a number of Rhett Butlers, a lot of Scarlett O'Haras, maybe even a couple of Vashtis, I don't know. Tom showed up as Tara. He came in as the plantation house. And when the party was over, he gave me the house. He said, I had no place to put this thing. Oh, yeah, go to the store. So I said, well, I can just put it in the backyard, Tommy. That's good, that's good. And the cats had a great time climbing in and out of Tara until it finally disintegrated in the rain. But that was Tom, Tara. Anyone else have anything to say? Here we go. By the way, I forgot to give my name. I'm Peter Renadine.
Hi, I'm Larry Brooks, and I have a lot of memories of Tom. I knew him for many, many years. We met in 1963, and both of us were kind of like fanatic collectors on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And before I get into that story, I'll never forget when Tom was working on a picture called Flesh Gordon, along with Phil Tippett and I think Mike Miner, who was the art director on that. And Tom told me they were shooting the special effects in a closed Venetian blind factory over in Eagle Rock, and I came out there to visit him. And I'll never forget, they had all these, well, I guess off-scene spaceships and things like that, beautifully made by the guy who did the mothership on Close Encounters, Greg Jean. I mean, just magnificent models, but in shapes you would not imagine. But anyway, there was a knock on the door. And Tom said, "Can you get that, Larry?" And I went over there, and there's some little old lady. And she says, "Do you sell Venetian blinds?" And I said, "No, but we're making a porno film back here if you want to come in and watch it." And then Tom slammed the door, and then he pulled it open again and says, "No, lady, we're closed today." Slammed it again. And he says, "Jesus, do you want to get me tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail?" "Don't say that. Don't tell anybody. Or they'll throw us out of Eagle Rock." And so that's one story. Another one would be when we were collecting, and we'd get new photographs or things from 20,000 Leagues, where Tom would. And one of the greatest things I miss is bringing stuff over to show to Tom. My brother and I would get like a new still or a poster, and we'd bring it over and show it to Tom, and he'd look over it kind of sternly and say, "Oh, who gave you permission to get this?" He's just a great guy to be around. And I guess the last thing is he's always sketching. As you've already heard, whenever he went to a coffee shop, it's like the lights came on, the pen came out, and he began drawing on napkins. And I wish to God I'd kept all those things, because there wasn't a time he didn't make a drawing or several drawings. And when he finished, he would frequently fold it very nicely into like a little rectangle and then slip it underneath the saucer of a cup of coffee for like a waitress to find, or just to kind of let it go. He didn't want to take it home with him. And God, I should have grabbed those.
I just happened to think of one other thing that was kind of funny. Ward Kimball had stored what was Tom's creation, which was a gigantic, what was it, about 12 feet high?
Yeah.
Steam man. It looked like a big robot with big bolts, kind of like a man that looked like the Nautilus. And, Ward had 2 actual trains, full-size trains in his backyard, tracks and everything, and it ran about a city block. He had a long piece of property. But he'd invite school kids, and teachers would bring the school kids over by the dozens to see these 2 locomotive trains. But the kids would take one look at that steam man and just drawn to it like a magnet. And Ward would say, "I got 2 damn trains here. All I give a damn about is that steam man standing right there." That was just another one of Tom's many creations. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Tom Clark from Berkeley, and I was privileged to know Tom virtually his entire life. His brother Roland and I have been friends since before kindergarten, so I remember Tom literally as an infant. And with Roland, I was at Tom's bedside when he died, so I was there for the full circle of Tom's life. And particularly over the last 10 years of his life, when I got to know him better, because I was in Northern California and used to come down and visit him, I really grew to love Tom. Somebody used the word genius, and I think that's an appropriate word to describe Tom. And two aspects of his intelligence which were so prominent. One was the fact that he had, by far and away, the most acute memory of any person I've ever met. In fact, there were times when I used to talk to Tom about things that had happened 30 or 40 years ago, when I thought that he remembered more about my own life than I did. He just simply remembered everything. And the other thing, and I remember at his memorial service, I likened him in one aspect to Mozart. Not that Tom was particularly musical, but in the sense of genius, he had that capacity to, I think, conceive of large-scale projects and designs in his head almost to completion. And then those of you who were privileged enough to see his napkin art, I think you just saw aspects of what he had already conceived of in his head. And Tom was one of the sweetest people I have ever met in my life. And I don't think he had a malicious bone in his body. And although all the pictures you see of Tom show him rather stern-faced, anybody who knew Tom personally knew that he had a magnificent sense of humor. And to this day, I will cherish my relationship with him, and I miss him greatly.
Hi, my name is Bob Short, and I knew Tom in the early 70s. Again, as with all of us, it was a combined fondness of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When I was a youngster and I saw 20,000 Leagues for the first time, it instantly became, and still is to this day, my favorite film of all time, which usually raises eyebrows when I'm around friends and they ask, well, what's your favorite film? And sure enough, mine's always 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And again, it's always met with a little bit of skepticism. But from the time that I saw 20,000 Leagues, it had a profound impact on my life. It was something that always fascinated me, and it always seemed to be something out of reach. Filmmaking, whatever it was, the process that created that environment, the ship, the characters, the thing that had entranced me. Out there in the sea, kind of lost as to what to do with this energy. My dad, fortunately, always knew where he could find me to entertain me. He could always take me down to Disneyland and know that instead of tracking me down at any particular rides throughout the park, he knew that he could drop me off at Disneyland, and he would find me always at the 20,000 Leagues exhibit for hours and hours and hours, walking through it back and forth, back and forth. And probably at that time, I probably walked right past Tom and never knew it. Fond memories of being in the exhibit are things like sneaking up into the actual exhibits every time there wasn't a guard, and doing things like grabbing the charts out of the holes in the navigation room and finding to my surprise that the charts were not of the Caribbean but of the TWA's moon cruiser blueprints, and being quite shocked at that. And what this all led to is that my dad hated Walt Disney for the simple reason that my dad actually sold Walt all of his cars. And that was another weird little twist of fate. My dad worked as a car salesman. And again, he was the fellow who sold Walt his cars, so we knew Walt. And Walt would always tell my dad, as soon as Bob's old enough, I'll get him a job at the studio, and he'll be able to, be able to work at Disney Studios, and he'll finally achieve his lifelong, his lifelong dream to get into the movie business. And of course, that same year, Walt passed away. So Dad never forgave Walt the fact that he went and passed away after promising the family that I'd have an opening into the film business. So me, I had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to go about it. I was still entranced with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the Nautilus, the whole 9 yards. What kind of opened a door for me is that I was a fan, going to conventions, and I had purchased from somebody a strange-looking dinosaur suit, not the one that was just previously discussed, but another dinosaur suit that was used on Star Trek. It was called a Gorn. It was the original suit that was used on the series. And I bought it for $25. used to take it to conventions, wear it, and goof around in it. Eventually, it started to wear out. And a good friend of mine, Greg Jean, said, well, I know somebody who could probably take some time and put this thing back together. Well, went to Hollywood to a very ordinary duplex apartment kind of complex. And he said, you're gonna, I know exactly, well, I don't want to spoil it for you. Just knock on the door and just see what happens, and just ask this guy to help repair your Gorn suit. And myself, though I'd been playing around inside the suit and all that, I had no idea what to do as far as how to put it back together or how it was even made. So we go to this friend's house, knock on the door, we open the door, and much to my surprise, the door opens, and what does it reveal but another door? And that particular door happened to look like one of the hatchways to the Nautilus. So suddenly it was suddenly like stepping through Alice in the Looking Glass. Like, what? Okay, what is all this have to do with what? Why is the Nautilus here in this apartment building? And so the next thing I know, door handle slides aside, this huge, imposing, rivet-covered, rust-covered door swings open, and inside is Captain Nemo's quarters, slightly modified with some embellishments. But I suddenly stepped through this door, truly through the looking glass, into the world of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and to meet the fellow who had turned his apartment into the Nautilus, Tom Sherman. And needless to say, the impressions that people like Tony have been doing these past couple of days, and everybody else, in regards to Tom, are so dead on, it's kind of scary. So basically, what I wanted to say is that Tom, in a way, opened a door for me to realize that not only could you sit back and watch a film, but you could actually get involved and realize how this stuff was made, and that somebody could actually sit down and make this stuff. Realizing for the first time that, yeah, somebody really was behind all this, and that there are people that put this together, and this is how it's made, and suddenly getting an idea from Tom. Of course, Tom repaired the Gorn. I eventually sold it again. I sold it for $25. A couple years later, of course, I have no idea where it's gone to now. But in meeting Tom and getting introduced to how props were made, how they were repaired, what Tom had done with his apartment, and his love of 20,000 Leagues, my love of 20,000 Leagues, and that common bond opened up to me an area that I really didn't have an idea as to exactly how to move forward with. But meeting somebody like Tom and seeing what he had done really helped me kind of start myself along the path of making these kind of things, monsters, miniatures, makeup effects, these kind of things. And I really do owe it to Tom somewhat, as being one of the people that kind of opened that door. So also, again, the 20,000 Leagues connection and Tom, and being able to say, actually with pride, yes, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is still my favorite film, led me to do things like learn how to scuba dive, go to the Caribbean, experience the stuff firsthand, which led to getting work at Disney. The first show that I ever worked at Disney on I was called in to design the makeup and the tail and supervise the underwater sequences with Daryl Hannah on Splash. And because of my association with Tom, Disney, with 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, what you see in Splash and Daryl's look and what we did underwater is a direct relationship to Tom's influence on me. Fred, the divers that I worked with Disney on shows like Splash and then Cocoon and then Cocoon Return were people who had worked on 20,000 Leagues, like Fred Zendar, and being able to sit down with Fred, talk to him about 20,000 Leagues, and actually be there in the Bahamas underwater with some of the crew from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was such a strange, was such a strange, reality and kind of, full circle thing. Again, coming back to Tom. So the things that I've experienced in my career in the industry, doing things like, again, Splash and Cocoon and Lethal Weapon 4, doing, dolphins, sharks, and all these underwater and water-related creatures relates to Tom, and also just being in the, again, just being in the industry, having the ability to do things like these films was again, I can think back to that time of going and meeting Tom. One of the things that I did before I came here, because it was somewhat about 30 some odd years ago that I was introduced to, I think back, and it's truly about 30 some odd years ago that I was introduced to Tom and his apartment. And I noticed in the back that there are some photos of Tom's apartment. They're just stuck away in the collage back there. And for all intents and purposes, I don't think you'd even know. I don't think you'd ever even realize that it's Tom's apartment that you're looking at. You might think it's actually the Nautilus interiors. But what I did before I came here, I said, okay, I haven't been in that apartment in 30 years. And I never took a photograph of it, never did any sketches. But then I said to myself, I just wonder how much of an impression that artwork, that craftsmanship, that environment that Tom created for himself and then shared with other people, just how much of an impact that it had on me. And so what I did is I just did a few sketches just for the heck of it and blew them up just to see if there was anything of the memory still cooking. And that's the doorway. If you can imagine, you can imagine just a normal, everyday duplex apartment building, and you go there and you open up that front door, and that's the door that's behind the door, and you go, okay, what now?
Well, he didn't want the landlady to know what he had done to the apartment.
So that was the door as I remembered it. And again, you'll get a better idea of all of this when you look at the little collage back there. And again, it was just 30 years thinking back and walking in there. This was the door. He had a bunk with red velvet, pillows, the same way as Nemo's, bunk. Again, everything was certainly, art directed out to look like the Nautilus, with the map on one wall and a painting over on this side of the apartment that obviously I have no idea whatever happened to it, but it was a wonderful painting, and I don't know who did it or any of the background, but it was a painting of the Nautilus in Vulcania resting in a hoist, and Harry seems to have a clue on that one.
Danforth painted it.
Okay, a Jim Danforth painting of the Nautilus being repaired in a hoist, being taken across Vulcania, again for repairs. And it was just an amazing piece. In fact, Jim did the artwork on it. That obviously is the reason for it. And then if you turned around,
No.
and then if you turned around, there was like a wet bar and a hatchway above with with one of the ladders coming down, and the hatchway was open a little bit. And of course, everything in this whole presentation for the last 2 days ends with a squid attack. So, it was just natural that would be that. And what surprised the heck out of me is that when I came in today and the photos were up at the apartment, everything is, it's like this is 70, at least 80% to what I just looked at in the photos back there. And again, that's just sketches from, just trying to remember back 30 years. And so it's just, again, that's the kind of impression that Tom made on people. Oh, one of the things that I love about one of the things that I certainly remember is that the light switches and anything that had to do with a switch in the place looked like the switch that opened the iris. So nothing was normal in the apartment. Everything had the leagues overlay on it, even the light switches. So I was worried that nobody would have photos or any reference for Tom's apartment. And so that's why I did these sketches. I just wanted to share a part of Tom's life that only a few of us ever experienced. But those of us who experienced it were truly forever, in a way, truly forever changed. So that's my, so that's kind of my tribute to Tom, and in a way also kind of carrying Tom's legacy on beyond 20,000 Leagues into other things, such as the Disney projects that I worked on, and that's about it. The only other thing that I brought with me, just for the heck of it, and I don't know if I've gone on too long, is I brought like a 2-minute video of what of just CGI doodling that I've been doing, just as exercises for myself, just experimenting with compositing, that kind of thing. But even when I'm just sitting doodling, the Tom and, or I should say the 20,000 Leagues, the 20,000 Leagues reference still creeps in here and there. There's a couple, yeah, there's a little sound. So you'll see in this like little 2-minute thing, a compilation of just practice stuff, a few, yeah, you want to bring lights out? A few 20,000 Again, this is all just experimenting with techniques and programs and stuff. But there were a couple of images in here I thought you'd appreciate.
Well, there is a way you can see some of Tom's apartment. I've been told that if you get that naughty picture, Flesh Gordon, the interiors of those shapely crafts are made up of many of the pieces from the set you just saw, so beautifully depicted in those renderings. So I was there when Tom was going over the heartache of taking that all apart, and the shame of not having any final resting place for it. And then along came that picture, which he talked them into using the interiors from his house in the film. So if you can endure some of the other parts of that film, it is worth it to see what was truly some really good production design. Anyway, what we have here is, I think it's on again.
No, it's video time.
And now I'm on. Hello, okay. The last involvement directly with Tom was his memorial service, which we were trying to figure out where would be the appropriate place to do this. And we had a really unique building that we had put together in Glendale for the building of Disneyland Paris. And the cafeteria, oddly enough, was kind of, it looked like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It was kind of a gentleman's club with all kinds of Nautilus stuff and, fireplaces and things. And Tom had worked on putting in a lot of the sets, again on his own time, just putting together things that gave it more than your typical employee cafeteria. And so we said, this is absolutely where this has to happen. And it was for such a terrible moment, it was a wonderful occasion. And the keynote speaker at that was Ray Bradbury. And Ray spoke very beautifully about all the things he credited to Tom. He felt that he had gotten the contract for the New York World's Fair Pavilion, I think the American Pavilion, I believe it was, due to Tom, who at that time was very young, but had written the United States board on the World's Fair and said, the guy that you should have design the pavilion is Ray Bradbury. And knock, knock, knock on Ray's door, and there was the government saying, we want you to build a $50 million pavilion for us. So that he credited only to Tom Sherman. He said because of his love for Tom, every episode of the Ray Bradbury Theater would feature the Nautilus that Tom had given him. So when you see reruns of those, you'll see one of Tom's Nautiluses in all of those elements. And you saw Bruce Gordon on top, hanging on for dear life at the time that we were over there in Paris with Tom. And while we were, making sure Tom got to do everything that he wanted to do, Bruce was documenting as much of it as he could with, by today's standards, technology. This was 1993 or four, I guess it was. Primitive video. So we had to actually transfer what you're going to see now from obsolete Apple, editing equipment that was no longer usable. And we had to find a bootleg program that would allow us to convert it to Macintosh editing software. And so after about 10 years of rich prodding and prodding and prodding, Bruce did this for you all today. And so what we're going to show you is the piece that we ran, and I think this will be kind of the ending of the event here, the piece that we ran of Tom as a tribute to what he meant to all of us. There's a little bit of fun at the end. It's hard to believe this actually happened, but as Tom was filming one of the shots in this, he looked down and there was a piece of debris on the ground that, honest to God, was there. It was a piece of trash. Tom picked it up, and I won't spoil it for you, but it's quite funny. So we'll roll the last piece. I think if the lights are down a little bit, it'll be more impressive.
Is there sound? Yeah, there should be sound.
Ah, the whale of a tale to tell you that. The whale of a tale or two about the flapping fish and the girls I've loved. Now, nights like this, we can moan about. The whale of a tale, and it's all true, I swear by my tattoo. There was Mermaid Minnie, met her down in Madagascar. She would kiss me anytime that I would ask her. Then one evening, her flame of love blew out. Blow me down, pick me up, she swapped me for a trout.
Got a whale of a tale to tell you that. A whale of a tale or two about the flapping fish and the girls I've loved. The nights
Typhoon Tessie. Met her on the coast of Java. When we kissed, I bubbled up like molten lava. Then she gave me the scare of my young life. Blow me down and pick me up. She was the captain's wife.
Got a whale of a tale to tell you tonight. A whale of a tale or two about the fat fish and the girls I've loved on nights like this with the moon above. A whale of a tale and it's all true. I swear by my tattoo.
And you know they built the wheelhouse of the film 5 feet wider and 8 feet longer than the movie, the interior is saying.
Got a whale of a tale to tell you tonight. A whale of a tale or two about the fat fish and the girls I've loved on nights like this with the moon above. A whale of a tale and it's all true. I swear by my tattoo.
There was Typhoon Tessie. Met her on the coast of Java. When we kissed, I bubbled up like molten lava. Then she gave me the scare of my young life. Blow me down and pick me up. She was the captain's wife.
Got a whale of a tale to tell you tonight. A whale of a tale or two about the flapping fish and the girls I've loved on nights like this with the moon above. A whale of a tale and it's all true. I swear by my tattoo.
All right, friends and neighbors. Whenever I'm out there fighting giant squid during the rainy season, I'm never without my volcano on. Who's noticing, right? So, my best result is killing that giant squid. Volcano. Even I like it.
Oh, Tom. That's gotta be a record thing now.
Lights.
That was an absolute.
Folks, I guess that is where we come to an end of this weekend. We have a few things, so don't go away just yet. We're going to announce those winners, but I want to thank Tony, Roland, Peter, Robert, all these, Richard over there, and all these fine people for sharing the memories of Tom. And I'm very sorry they never got to meet the man. It would have been, I think, a rewarding moment in my life. Another rewarding moment, though, is meeting all of you. And this has been a great weekend. Thank you. Thank you. This has been an idea that I've been trying to push and get done for about 6 years. And I've been talking about the comments with some friends, and one day at Disneyland, a friend of mine said, "There's somebody I want you to meet over here, this pin card." And that was Rich Allsmiller and his wife, Paulette. And we got talking about the novels in 20,000 Leagues. And next thing you know, a year later, Rich is starting the parties again, and the story grows from there. And Rich, like I said earlier, this is where it's coming to now. I don't know where it's going to go next. Where is it going to go next? You folks want to do this again?
Yeah!
Paris is good. There's a number of things I learned this time from electronic communications and websites. They're just amazing. We're going to set up a Yahoo group site that everyone can go to for general information to make it easier. And obviously, ideas, connect stays fresh and live. So once we get this set up, you guys will be able to be contacted, and we'll get the ideas and try to make sure that some of those visions are fulfilled for you also. We are right now going with the state of California. We've got the application in to be recognized as an official club. This means we will hopefully be getting nonprofit status sometime later this year. This means that we'll be having opening memberships, a newsletter 2 or 3 times a year for you folks to contribute to and read, and of course another event next year. And beyond that, who knows what this is going to go through. So that's the plans for the future. At this point, I'm going to again thank you, everyone here, and all the speakers. I'd like to go through a few things. If you folks can bear with me now, don't start the music, please. There's a few people I want to recognize. First of all, Will Babington, please come up here. I want to recognize Will Babington. Scott Woodley. Jim, please come up. Scott, this one's yours. Will, this is yours.
Look at that shirt!
Jim, you are an amazing man. This is yours. These 3 people and Rich already got his certificate, did the exhibition. They took it on. And they put up with me being stressed out and worrying about space needs and trying to do the best I can. These 4 gentlemen, with Rich included, did that amazing thing in the back of the room. And they are a major part of what made this weekend happen. I want to thank each and every one of these fine gentlemen again. Okay, there's a couple of other people, and Rich and I have sat around and talked Nautilus and Discovery Bay and 20,000 Leagues for hours upon end in his back studio apartment where his art and graphic and modeling studio is. And out in the kitchen or in the living room sits Paulette, his wife, a wonderful human being. And Paulette has referred to herself at one point as a Nautilus widow. There are people who put up with what these gentlemen and us enthusiasts go through. I would like to recognize 2 of these fine people who have came in this weekend, ran the registration table, have really done help, and that is Paulette and Michelle Babington. If you folks would come up here, please. These are the wives of I have my best friend and my roommate who has put up with me being a Nautilus nut, being a convention nut, having to be run around because I don't own a car to get everything done from 7 o'clock in the morning until midnight at night sometimes, and just giving her day to me to do this when she has 10,001 other things to do. Her name is Lisa Bell. Lisa, would you come up? Roland, this one is yours. For everything. Thank you. And of course, everyone else. Now we have, nobody actually got the DVD drawing, so we're actually going to give away 7 of the DVDs to you lucky folks. This is going to go as quick as I can make it here, so when you hear your name, just one come get it. Edlin Andrews. Edlin. She back here? Back here? There you go. Okay. There goes one of those. Okay. Andy Moore. Let's see. Jeff Porteous. Armando Torres. Tim Knapp.
Oh, he's not here.
Tim Knapp? Okay, we will mail him his. Can you get to him?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I know
This
him.
goes with Tim's. Okay, there we go. And let's see if we got a few more there. Okay. This is Brock Robertson. Brock Robertson. People have multiple winnings. I want to share if I get something here. Kim Keyline has got a DVD. The next two DVDs are the ones that were signed by all of our speakers who were here this weekend. Leo Newton. Leo Newton. I don't even know who this person is. A fellow named Robert Wood. Robert Wood. Before we go into the big drawings for announcing the winner of the silent auction and finally the Scott Bodine 31-inch Nautilus, there is one more copy of the signed 20,000 Leagues up here. I would like to introduce you to Chris and Jen Scott. Folks, please stand up, would you please? Chris and Jen sent me an email. They've been friends for a couple, 3 years, and they said, what can we do to help? And they showed up Saturday morning, and Chris has been the most amazing audiovisual support and all-around assistance because my gimpy leg. He has basically done this show out of nowhere. And Jen, and she's done a lot for herself, so for you too, this is a very special thank you. Please give them a large round of applause, and this is for you folks here. The silent auction winner and let them know how to take care of the details. This one's coming across to you there.
I bid for the set of 5 Tom Sherman napkin sketches scans. The highest res scans in the world, by the way. They're really beautiful. You can see the nap on the napkin. Louis Maestro. Louis Maestro.
And the last one, of course, is for Scott's 31-inch Nautilus. Got my cord. Roland, again, would you do the honor? Just reach in there and grab one of those out. No, that's my hand. Okay. Who we have here is Michael Morgan. Come on up. It is a 31-inch. The large 31. I got a couple of other things I want to say, and then we have to say goodbye for this one. It's going to break my heart. But do remember, once we get the website set up, you guys notified that send in your ideas and through that. I had hoped to be able to say at one point that if this thing would break even, we're going to be able to give money to the American Cancer Society in the name of Tom Sherman. I'm not sure how much it's going to be. We did break even. We broke even yesterday. I think there's at least $200 some odd after I pay the last of the bills off of this. It will be going to the American Cancer Society in the name of Tom Sherman.
Wonderful.
So, thank you all very much. This has been your show, and this has been for Tom. So, those things, thanks so much. And God bless, and I guess see each other next year.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. You're welcome to keep that. You can keep the card, sir. I don't mind you transferring it, but you can keep it if you want. I got plenty. Fair enough.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Bennett, I've been thinking about this for a while. And once I approach you, this is from an attraction vehicle in Florida, and I wonder if you would sign it. Get a shark. I've got one in my pocket. Thank you. I don't know, maybe just under somewhere, or this thing, do whatever you like. No, just sign it or whatever you might like to do. Will you lay it down or are you okay like that?
Well, except for sound.
No, I don't remember. Do you know where the DVD is?
Yeah, it's in the Oh man. That's good. It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let me get you a business card for you.
You did a couple of things, I think.
I just like right back there. And there's
Window decoration should be
small little notebook
rewarded as well.
stuff in.
Can't get enough good window decorations.
I don't see where I put it at. It might be on the other table. There. A little spiral binder. I think I have some of my cards. Oh, cool. Yeah, God bless. Yeah. And careful. Oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys take care.
And cheap theatrics.
Cheap theatrics.
Rich, excuse me, have you any stories to add to these, the origin or, where?
I think they were done for the Long Beach project. They're almost taken intact and put.
But they do seem kind of chillingly similar.
And they were used over there at Tokyo Disney Seas. There was a guy named John Olson that knew Tom and loved Tom. He was kind of ramrodding some of the stuff.
And then I spent all Friday night up finishing up the program and stuff. Came in Saturday morning, here's the rest of the set. And by about noon on Saturday, I was just so blown away by what was happening because it took on that momentum of its own. And I could just sit back and say, by watching the people, as I said, it worked. And it's for the people. It wasn't for me, it was for them. Thank you. And you guys.
All right. Yes, indeed.
God
I'll
bless.
be there.
Take care. You got that.